I think I've said this before, but it seems like every single week we have to graffiti the same part of the wall. Here, catch.
Thanks. I kind of dig the cardio, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Keeping me
Anthony
fit.
Magnabosco spends a lot of time here.
Yeah, he's always walking across the street.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
you ready for this?
Yeah, but you're just going to get us there only just on time. Not early. And
All
here
right,
we
hello
are.
and welcome to Talk Heathen!
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Eric. Today it is Season 2, Episode 50. It is December 16th, 2018. I did that backwards this time, but that's all right.
That's because I said my name first. So
you messed me up.
It reversed your
That's
brain.
all right.
Your brain got mirror
So,
flipped.
before we head into calls, I was actually listening to some YouTube comments and they were saying, I was watching YouTube comments.
That's dangerous.
No, that's okay.
Did you also cast
one thing
some
that I saw
bones?
pretty regularly is that people were saying that they're not huge fans of the intro, when we spend the first 10, 15 minutes talking to each other. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to intersperse them throughout the show so that we can get to calls sooner. Right. And so the first thing that I want to say... Okay, first call. That works.
I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
We've worked. Okay.
Frode in Norway. Hello. Hey.
Hello, Jamie and Eric.
Hey.
Hello.
How's it going?
How are my favorite heathens?
Aw, really, really well, actually.
I'm actually doing well, yeah.
Yeah.
My family has a tradition that we always go to this Christmas party thrown by a family friend, and that was yesterday. And so we did that, and that was good.
Rock on.
Oh.
Yeah. I also got to do a couple Christmas traditions with family. One of them is decorating the Christmas tree, and I actually wrote an article about it.
Oh, yeah. Where does that article appear?
Oh. Check it out, bro.
Oh my gosh,
We got an
it's a
MFing
special
newsletter.
print edition of the magazine Thinking Aloud, which is a publication of the Atheist Community of Austin, and it's awesome.
And it's free.
It's free.
Yeah, you can go to the...
It's not always a print edition, but it is always free.
This feels bad. I don't like doing this during a call. This makes me feel real bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't like this.
Yeah.
We need to do
We
this
need to
after
intersperse
the
it in between the calls here.
in between the calls. No, that's okay.
Over there.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all right.
Try that later.
Well,
okay.
Right. We'll fix it in post. It's fine.
Another thing is that Frode, I'm actually working on an independent project, and it's coming along fabulously, and I'm excited. So,
and I'm definitely not jealous.
So, I've been in the process of building a studio at home, and it's really fun. So when I'm ready to talk about it all.
So what did you want to talk about, caller who's been waiting on the line?
I love this banter, so don't mind. Just go on talking without me. I will pretend I'm not here.
No, we like you a lot.
We'll do a morning radio show.
How have you been, man?
Yeah. It's been two weeks that has been difficult. I'm not going to lie. Last time I called, we talked a little about my dad. I went to him to see him. That didn't go well. So this is my first Christmas. Yeah, it is what it is. But this time I decided that I will just celebrate Christmas alone at home. So I want to ask you, how do you celebrate something that has been religiously grounded as an atheist? That's kind of what I wanted to talk a little about.
Sure.
With reckless abandon and holiday cheer.
I like that. Wow, that was succinct. Dear diary.
I was going to say, today
Jamie said something succinct. I actually don't know if I can improve upon that at all. It's exactly how you want it to be. I mean, take those things that you love the most and do them. Because what you were raised with and what is, culturally, baked into what you're used to, you've inherited that. That is something that you have every right to as well. And so if you want to celebrate, a specific way, then you should. Just, Yeah, I absolutely hate when people say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to take on, tools of Christianity." It's like, no. Christianity co-opted so many things to make Christmas and other holidays like it that to give that to Christianity is to give them a win that they don't deserve.
I was going to say, they co-opted holiday cheer, and we're taking it back.
That's right.
With ridiculously large smiles.
In fact, the Center for Inquiry out here in Austin is throwing a Saturnalia party.
Just the Center for Inquiry?
Well, no, the ACA is throwing a dinner party as well. But do
you mean that we're throwing it together as groups? We're both throwing it.
Would you like to talk about this, Jamie?
No, just that one point where we're working together as partners on it.
I
worked hard to get that through the board. It's fine.
I'm having some doubts about this marriage, Jamie.
What marriage are you talking about?
So
no idea.
But we'll include that in one of the announcements that's not during the call because that felt real weird. Real weird. But what I was going to say was, some people say keep the Saturn and Saturnalia. There are people who Festivus or whatever the case may be. There are plenty of people who celebrate Hanukkah who are not Jewish. And take it, have fun with it, and any excuse you have. I mean, absolutely do. But reach out to your friends, reach out to people, because that's important. And it's not always about having those people near you as much as it is reaching out to them. There are people who I absolutely adore. I love them. There are people in my life that I don't get to see anymore, but I make sure that I call them every once in a while to tell them I love them. Because it's important, and make this an excuse to do that.
Do you think? I think I'm also looking for advice to, like, how to take the religion aspect of it, but still keep it Christmasly. It's kind of in Norway, especially. I think it's we have a very strong Christmas tradition. I remember in school, and this was in non-secular school, was that we were always in church singing. We always went around the Christmas tree. We always did non-religious things. But for me, it's kind of hard. And this is why I'm looking kind of for advice on specifically things to do during the holidays, how to keep it still taking away the religion aspect of it, especially because it's my first Christmas as an atheist. So I think I really want to do I want to celebrate Christmas my way, but I don't really know what my way is because
Well,
let's
good news. There's no wrong way to do your way.
Yeah. So let's
up
do some
in Norway.
Oh man.
Yeah, I was going to say. So indoor lighting that's electric.
That was pretty
is
good.
Certainly, is certainly not exclusively Christian. So what are often called Christmas lights can be decorative lights that you drape all over posters of literally anything but God, and it counts. Dead trees while they've been co-opted by Christmas, and the Yule log while it's been co-opted. I said co-opted by Christmas. Co-opted by the Jesus part of Christmas. They may feel Jesus-y because they've been claimed that, but they're not really. There's actually, I've forgotten which.
Okay, no, we're not going into the history on that. This is not the show for it.
The lightest bit I'll say is there's a passage in the Bible. I don't actually know.
Okay, then. So
the specific. Okay, well, whatever.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'll post it in the comments.
That sounds good to me. You will go to the comments.
Yes.
I will buy you lunch if you go to the comments.
You should buy me lunch often.
So,
I just don't tell people because otherwise they'll put mean things there.
Here's the deal. Frode, do you like Christmas music?
I love Christmas music.
Okay, then you should listen to Christmas music.
Yeah.
Are there any Christmas foods that you really enjoy?
Yeah.
Like what?
We have something really Norwegian called pinnekjøtt. What it is smoked meat, sheep meat, and we have it with, yeah, it's really good. We have it with potatoes. It's especially if you're from the southern part of Norway. In the middle of part of Norway, we eat something called ribben, that is more like something from pig, and we also have something really terrible that you should all Google called lutefisk. And
Oh yeah, we know what lutefisk is.
Lutefisk, yeah.
So those things that you like, go and do those things. Go eat those things, right? Are there any specific activities that you like doing around this time? Maybe it's making mulled wine, or maybe it's singing.
Going to church, listening to Christmas music.
Then go do that.
There's a lot of Christmas. Isn't it kind of...
No.
Isn't it kind of...
No, not at all.
Doors are open to everyone.
And honestly, man, no one is here to judge you. Go do those things that make you happy. I mean, really, honestly, there are some Christmas songs that are overtly religious that get stuck in my head every year that I wind up listening to, and I absolutely adore. And I don't sit there and think, I can't enjoy this because it talks about a god, because holy crap, I love Marvel movies. And those feature, characters from the Norse pantheon. Right?
They also...
and so
Wonder Woman is from the Greek pantheon as well, kind of.
She's from Themyscira, which is...
Well, but she got added, her original origin story.
Lesbos, which is from
it's
Iliad.
Whole,
yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Let's not get into comic mythology here.
Which is fine, but I enjoy those things, and they have to do with a mythology and an actual religious mythology, and I love them. And so you can absolutely like something without having to, agree with whether or not it's true. It's the same with any books that you read. I like Harry Potter. That doesn't mean that I think that witches and wizards are real. I really like Dune, but I know that, whoever controls the spice controls the universe. That's not actually a real thing. It's just
haven't read it.
Fun.
Yeah.
And so go enjoy the music, man. We're not here to judge. Go be happy.
Yeah. Go dance with your pants off. It's fine. Although
Always.
It's probably too cold in Norway.
Honestly, I do that all year long.
I was going to say, it's almost certainly too cold in Norway. Ask your doctor whether dancing with your pants off is too much frostbite for you.
It's 18 minus degrees Celsius where I live here. It's really cold.
I don't have the conversion memorized, but I'm going to go ahead and say that's way too damn cold. Don't do it.
It is too damn cold.
Yeah.
But do you think it's and here is where I feel like I'm kind of stuck in the corner, because I feel like I think like going to church as a newly converted atheist and go and listening to the Christmas song, it just feels a little like entering a building I have kind of hard feelings about, to enjoy something that people are there to enjoy on another level. Isn't it kind of hypocritical for me to go to something like that?
So here's what I will say, particularly with the word hypocritical, because its definition is slipping away from its original meaning, which for a word like hypocritical annoys me. But what I will say is, no, I don't think it's hypocritical, because you're there to celebrate the holiday. You just think of it differently than probably the majority of the people there. However, dirty little secret that most people don't know, two Christians sitting in the pew next to each other, they've gone to the same church their entire life, they have very different views about God, right? There are people that are here in America that are Methodists, and some of them don't believe in an afterlife at all, which one might think, wait a minute, isn't that the whole point with the Jesus thing where you don't go to the bad version? It's like, no. I just am here and I don't think there's an afterlife. Done. So you shouldn't feel guilty about it, although it will, the first time you go back to church after deconverting, particularly after you're comfortable with your deconversion, will feel really weird. Or at least that's my experience, because I went back with my parents. I think it was last Christmas. And that was really weird. it was kind of weird. And then I was sort of like, oh, okay, they're just reading parts of the Bible. I know that these parts, contradict each other. And then everyone started praying in unison, and then mostly I just felt creepy and totally creeped out.
But you don't have to stay for that part. You can just stay for the music and then
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you that I was lucky enough to hear the Mormon Tabernacle Choir once.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Holy crap,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and Mormons, I mean, we can spend an entire episode.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean that the choir isn't freaking amazing.
Yeah. I will say, gospel, as far as just sound, is one of my favorite, genres almost. I just wish they...
The Blues Brothers, when they go and they get their mission from God to go save the penguin. I mean, really.
Haven't seen it.
I don't know if I can be co-host with you anymore.
Now I feel like I'm more under assault by the people around me than when I went to church.
Let Jamie know in the comments.
So...
what you think about that.
All right. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll respond to something. All right. I see you too. We have a live studio audience.
And they're all making faces at Jamie.
Yep. And I'm going to camera professional right here. Bring it.
I rally people against my co-host. I'm not a good person. I'm really not.
Well, I have never done that. So, for those of you listening at home, I did a cheeky wink to the camera on that part, but it still wasn't well timed.
Okay.
So
anyway,
the joke died.
I think. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we kind of move on?
No, I'm going to wish you a Merry Christmas in Norwegian. God jul.
Merry Christmas. I'm not going to.
Merry Christmas to you. Is it one word? Merry Christmas?
No. It's Merry is go, and Christmas is jul. So together it's God jul.
God jul. God jul?
I think I just made noises.
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead and leave any of the jokes that I just thought of on the table right
Take care,
there.
brother. We'll see.
If
we'll
you
talk
want to
next
invent
time.
your
Enjoy
own
your holiday.
traditions, reach out to me. I'll help.
Bye.
Bye, Frode.
Bye.
All right.
So quick, before we go to the next one. Hey, Eric, you wrote an article about, I forget actually what the prompt for this was.
Let's actually get the thing up this time.
Thinking aloud.
Yes,
this
it's,
way.
It's the newsletter that changed into a magazine. And if people want to get their subscription, all they got to do is go to the Atheist Community of Austin Facebook page, not the group, the page. And if you hit that call to action, it's to sign up and to get your copy emailed to you.
The digital copy, unlike the physical copy, includes links and interactive stuff and cool videos.
Stuff for all of our shows. I don't
all
think
the same words that are still awesome.
And it also has articles from all of your favorite hosts from all of our shows.
That's true.
So if you want to see articles from,
all of those people,
Well, we've had Don Baker, John Iacoletti, Phil Session. We've had Megan Bonner, Christy Powell. We've had me. We've had Jamie. We've had our board members. We've had, really, David Oliverio and our as well as our volunteers
and many
online,
more,
including Janet Reyes and John Tabb. We've had, Erin. Is a massive contributor, and I absolutely adore her.
We've definitely forgotten
everybody,
a ton of people.
Yeah, but
I hope that they don't feel excluded by our forgetting them. But there's just too much awesome in this.
And again, this is not something we're trying to sell because we're not asking for any money.
Yes,
it's
for
just
the low price of free. You can get this, and it's awesome.
But it's something that I'm super, super proud of. So. I don't want to forget Chris Donlin.
Yes.
Chris Donlin is the editor, and he's freaking amazing. Without him, we wouldn't have this. So, cheers. All right. You ready?
Yep. Wait, for what?
Really quick, live chat, Wellington Smith said that they really support this discussion. They're getting permission, and getting permission to enjoy life is essential. Donated $20 in the live chat. Thank you so much. Anybody else, you can do that. It does go 100% to us, unlike other channels that 30% goes to YouTube, 70% goes to the people. It is 100% to us because we're a 501c3 nonprofit. So if you'd like to donate, please consider doing that. And also, if you want to become a patron.
There's another one.
Patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. In the middle of the episode somewhere, we're actually going to go in and thank our top 5 patrons. And if you would like to be thanked on the air, and really, you don't have to put just your name. You can put something funny and we'll say it. And I really enjoy doing that. I check it during the show, so you still have time. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me and sign up. AJ Jar just donated
CJ Jar.
CJ Jar. Yes. Yep. Okay, ready?
Haha, you thought your name was a tongue twister. Correctly pronounced. All right, what's the next caller?
The next caller is Charles in Fort Worth, Texas. Charles, you're live with Eric and Jamie.
How's it going, guys?
Hey,
Good.
doing all right. What's up?
Hey, Eric, do you remember talking to me on Facebook?
I do.
I was
Yeah.
the Pagan talking to you about the other Pagan.
That's right. I'm glad you
That
called in.
sounds like the beginning of a joke, but all right.
I know, it's funny.
So what did you want to talk about?
I think magic is more of a spiritual energy that's within us, and everybody has it.
Is that something that correlates to the real world?
Yes,
How can you show that?
because you can test it through electromagnetic testing.
All right, so let me just do a
My God.
little bit of catching up on the background to fill in the audience and the viewers at home before you go down this.
Yeah.
You I don't know what that sound was, but
sorry.
no. I was.
It makes me happy when we
Eric's
talk about
sound
things.
thing that happened over there. So you've said that there's magic and it's a spiritual energy that everyone has, and it can affect the world, right? So is that through?
Well, everything in the world has it. Like trees have energy. Like the earth is made out of energy. That's why we use the elements.
No, it's
and
not.
every element has energy within it.
So to be clear, do you mean energy like in the the definitions that you would find in like a science textbook, like the energy that is E in E equals mc squared? Or do you mean energy in the...
like that,
Well, okay,
that's what's cool about. You can look at it from a science aspect, mathematics, universal.
So
Universal.
mathematics doesn't have a separate definition of energy. So in my experience...
but you still can use the formula to, if you had for your magic, what you're going to use.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's true. Physics uses math.
I'm not really good at math, so that's why I don't use a lot of mathematics.
I'm not a mathematician, professional, semi-pro, or particularly skilled. But so energy is the ability of something to do work, right? Is sort of the definition. So do you believe that there is, right now my body is breaking down chemical energy, and that's how I'm able to move my arms. Do you think that the energy that you're talking about is something different than that?
Well, you're using energy to move your arms, so technically you're using energy.
Okay.
I mean, yes, but the source of that energy can be traced eventually back to the sun, as we've covered before. But my body, I eat things, I break down the chemical, and my body breaks down the chemical energy in that. And then it turns ADP into ATP to store it, and that process is reversed in order to release that energy for my body to use it for basically everything my body does. So one of the things that you've said is you've talked about magic and you've said spiritual energy. So these are not terms that biologists use. Are you describing something other than that chemical process? Right? Like, do you believe that the energy that is in me can affect the world around me through a spell or, psychic powers or something along those lines?
Well, I mean, everybody has a special gift. I mean, some people are better at other things and
Well, I mean,
by
some people
using their energy.
Yeah, so some people are very good at shot put, right? And so someone could throw actually, I don't know what the thing in shot put is called, but through this window. Do you think that a person could break this window, with the energy of a spiritual kind channeled with their mind?
Can somebody cast a curse or fly with that energy?
Well, here, do spells exist and work?
Well, I mean, some spells work. I mean, I mean, of course, if you
you
use
give me an
herbals and if you use herbs and spices and stuff, and you're sick, you can of course get better. I mean, and that's part of ancient magic.
No. Oh, Charles, I need you in my life.
Hey, I'm still learning too, man.
Oh, buddy. I want to.
So,
Jamie, you finish you because
I was going to say, so to be clear, you mean something other than pharmaceuticals, right? So I can take an aspirin to treat symptoms. The active ingredient in aspirin you could find in, I forget what kind of tree bark. Is that what you mean? Like, as far as...
I find that stuff fascinating, too, like how they would know how to chew on this and it would make a toothache go away back then.
Yeah,
do you want to take this one?
I really, really want to take this one.
I think you should. I think you should take this one.
Okay, good. Okay. Hey, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to know that I'm coming from a place of empathy. I really, really want to connect with you here, okay? What you're doing is you are taking things that may seem similar to you and distorting them so that they sound like they're the same. Okay, and I'm going to give you a few examples, right? So we talk about energy, right? We talk about energy in biology, like Jamie gave you in his example. We talk about energy in mathematics when we can, by using the theory of special relativity, E equals mc squared, we can be able to determine how much potential energy something has and, be able to work out their mass and those kinds of things. We know that because we investigated. And so we were able to apply terminology to be able to describe the things that we see, right? That's not magic. That's learning about the world around us, right? So if you say this is hold on, wait, Jamie, Charles, wait,
put that energy.
Charles, hold on, because I'm coming to a very, very big conclusion here, right? And the conclusion that I'm trying to get to is if you say, oh, this kind of spell, ancient magic, whatever, is the same as actual science, and actual investigation that people have dedicated their lives to, you have grossly blurred the line between reality and fiction. You need to actually investigate the world and then you can talk about it. But to baselessly assert something and then blur the line is to absolutely miss the point. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions to try and determine whether or not you're blurring that line, because you could just be using the word magic to determine, to redefine things that we know every day, which is what Jamie was trying to do. He was asking, this is something that we know every day. Are you just using a weird definition for magic?
Well, you could use magic as knowledge. I mean,
okay, then quit saying magic.
Throughout the world, and the more you learn, the more you grow.
So if you're talking about the definition of the word knowledge and the definition of the word magic, right?
Is wisdom.
What?
To gain wisdom.
Hold on. Is there any difference between those two words? Can something be magical and not be knowledge?
Well, I mean, there's stuff that we don't know, and of course we continue to learn so we can know it.
Hold on. So are you saying that magic is knowledge and things that you don't know? Things that you know and things that you don't know?
Things that you're learning. You can continue to learn.
And things that you're learning.
That's why.
So if magic is literally, hold on, Charles, hold on. So is magic literally everything?
It could be.
That makes.
What do you believe that it is?
No, hold on, he's saying what it is, aren't you, Charles?
Yeah.
What's that?
You're saying what magic is. You're saying magic is literally everything. Those things you know, those things you don't know, and the process of learning. And magic, then, in your definition, not only makes no sense, but it makes things that actually do make sense difficult to understand. Not only is it a pointless and terrible definition.
You know everything and you don't know nothing. Well, it's okay to not know everything because then you continue to learn.
That is so outside of the point of this discussion. No, hold on. That is so outside of the point of this discussion. It's a rabbit trail that I'm not going to follow you on. Yeah. So let's dive in. This definition of magic is worthless. It's beyond worthless. It's detrimental. Do you think that witches can cast magic spells?
Do I believe they can?
Do you think I can levitate something with my mind?
And heal people?
No,
Yes,
no, I didn't say that. I said, can a witch cast a hex? Can somebody point and say some magic words and make something levitate or die?
Oh no, I never done that myself.
So real quick,
do you think that somebody can?
Here, let me just slightly help redirect that. Is that the kind of thing that can be done with magic?
I don't know. I use magic to kind of gain balance within myself.
Can you describe that process?
I do a lot of meditation and spiritual healing like that.
He has
like sage.
He is dropping
my own holy water.
So
like
many weird, freaky things that are their own rabbit trails. I'm wondering if you're a Poe.
When you say you use sage.
My ancient relatives and ancestors were shaman.
Do you know what a Poe is?
Like a poet?
No. He means like a person who's calling and yanking our chain, not being completely sincere with what they're saying. So this is the kind of show that would tempt someone.
I really like that my ancient ancestors were Vikings and shamans and all that stuff, and witches, and to learn that heritage is very knowledgeable.
I mean,
okay.
I like history too, but that doesn't mean that I think I can. Yeah. So you've said.
No, I'm not trying to pull your chain or change your mind. I just thought, from a pagan's perspective, I could maybe let y'all know where I come from.
You, sir, are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So Charles, do you understand that this kind of thinking will never get you to truth, or never get you to the knowing about the world around you? Yes or no?
The only reason I got into all this was not just because it's part of my heritage.
No, Charles, hold on. I asked you a yes or no question.
Wait, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that is freaky, and I'm not following you down the rabbit hole. I want you to answer yes or no. Yes
if you
or
heard
no.
That story, you'd just be like, man.
Don't care.
That's
Listen.
Crazy.
Answer my question. Yes or no. Do you even remember, or were you waiting for your turn to talk?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm partially deaf, too.
Okay, I'll ask you again, right? This line of thinking will never get you to truth or knowing anything about the world. Would you agree with that, yes or no?
No.
Why?
I'm constantly learning and growing and within a person.
No, I asked you about this kind of thinking. I'm not asking you, right? Because I respect you as a person. I think that you're kind of the thinking that you're using, the epistemology that you're using to be able to determine whether or not a thing is true is so way off base that it is functionally useless at best and detrimental at worst. And so I'm asking you not about you as a person. I'm asking this kind of thinking. Do you understand that it's not useful at all? Yes or no?
No, I mean, I've helped people in the past with my way of thinking, so...
Okay, hold on. So Jim Jones helped people. No, cult leaders who lead their cults to commit suicide helped people too.
But you're not supposed to harm nobody.
Hold on. Well, no, now you're adding extra layers on top. I don't care. I'm asking you if you understand that if I help someone, that doesn't mean that what I think about things is true.
Well, I mean, if you choose not to use it, then that's fine. I mean, I don't force to help anybody if they don't want me to.
Again, you sidestepped the question. Do you understand that you're dancing right now? You're dancing around the topic.
Yeah, I think you...
Right? That this is contortion. I'm not asking you, Charles, if, people follow or listen to you or whether or not you're a good person or whether or not you help people. I'm talking about this kind of thinking. If you think people have magic and maybe kind of sort of people can do magic spells and maybe kind of sort of, I don't know, therefore I'm not going to think about it anymore, is a good way to get to know the world around you. Because I'll tell you right now, it's not, right? You investigate. You go, I want to know what is true. And then you use the best tools at your disposal to learn those true things and follow wherever the evidence guides you. What you don't do is just throw shit out there and go, It's never going to get you there, dude. Ever.
Well, you're constantly learning. That's why I said
I'm not.
Never fully know everything. That's why I'm constantly, reading, researching, learning, meditating on it.
So then let's agree together that saying I don't know, therefore it can be true, and I don't know, therefore magic, is a really bad tool. Because if you're really wanting to grow, then that is a great tool to take out of your toolbox right now.
So you're saying that people that have a heritage with something, and it's been one witch passed it down to another witch, to another pagan, to that pagan, that they should just say, hey, because we have grown this far and we have lasted this long, we should not even.
It depends.
Not even.
So if you think that
have
killing
our heritage anymore.
No, but I'm saying that if those people, if that knowledge was, hey, I existed, fantastic. But if that knowledge is rolling chicken bones to be able to read the future is a thing, then fuck no, dude. Because you need to investigate whether or not it's true. And if it's not true, it's a really shitty tool.
Well,
right?
I've found a lot of stuff that's true. Like
there are cultures.
My grandma, she could heal people with herbs and remedies and stuff like that. And it's
do you understand that
would be a lot better used than pharmaceuticals today? That's for sure.
You, sir, are fractally bad. I mean, my goodness, this is like an unending kaleidoscope of topics that he's like an infinite onion, Jamie.
Infinite onion.
I don't.
Well, here, I can.
You are.
I'm.
So.
But I
Charles,
would say look up the electromagnetic testing, because it will show not just ghosts and spiritual things have energy, but we have energy.
Charles.
So.
Charles,
and scientists have been able to prove that.
No, they haven't. Charles, everything is going to be
that's
okay.
not accurate. Yeah.
Everything is going to be. I want to hug him.
Yeah.
Charles,
if you'll let me, I can take him back for a bit.
Yeah. Before I give you to Jamie, herbs and spices leads to KFC. If you want to know what medicine is, you find what actually works on the human body. And then you use that as medicine, which is the basis of how we got to the pharmaceutical industry. When you make baseless assertions and blur the line between things and then start to assert fantasy, anything can be true. And when you open your mind wide enough, your brain falls out. And my friend, your brain is hanging, man. We got to roll you back in. I want to give you good tools because I want you to succeed in life. And you are not using good tools right now. And we're trying to give you examples. So I hope you listen back. And after you talk to Jamie, I hope you listen back to this and try and use the tools that we're trying to help you with. And if you have questions in the future, I'm going to give you to Jamie. I've been on this for a little bit. You go ahead, dude.
Hey, so Charles, I think in general on these calls, we operate under the assumption that people want to know what's true and believe what's true. And they want to do that even if they learn that, at one point I was wrong, and it's a very uncomfortable thing to learn that a person was wrong. I'm going into this conversation with the idea that if I learn that there's magic spells that work, particularly if there's one that pays my rent, that, I'm going to use that one real fast. But is that something that it's fair to say about your approach to this conversation, that you'd like to believe what's true even if it's uncomfortable?
I've learned to don't always ask for what you want, because I've asked for money a few times myself for rent and be like, man, I need an extra $100, and then walk out of the store and there goes $100 and brush right against my leg. I'm like, well, I'll make sure what I ask next time. And
hold on,
it's just crazy. I've had that happen like 3 times.
You do realize that money doesn't materialize out of nowhere. Somebody's probably was looking. Somebody was probably looking for that $100. No, what's heinous is that you wouldn't have tried to find the person who lost the $100 I'm always.
Well, I mean, I did go ask, and of course, in the store they said within a certain 24 hours or something, if somebody didn't come back for it, then I could get the money, and but at least I did the right thing.
Okay,
and then,
good.
And then I ended up getting the money.
Okay, so
the main point I was trying to get to, Charles, is if you come to a place where you go, wow, these beliefs that I hold are not supported by evidence or reason, would that change your mind about the beliefs that you hold?
Well, if I could learn something and I add it to my knowledge that I have already, then of course I'll grow further than where I was yesterday.
Okay, so if you learned, for example, that the spell that you used to ask for money wasn't an effective way to ask for money, would that change your mind about that spell?
Well, I've learned not to ask for like material things anymore.
Well, okay, but that's not really the answer to my question. My question actually doesn't even need to be applied specifically to that example. So there's a lot of things that you believe based on, as you've said, your heritage that have been passed down from generation to generation to generation. If you, as your generation, learn that something that's been passed down and has been said, yes, example A is a thing that's true, and your great-great-grandparent said to your great-grandparent that this is true, and your great-grandparent said to your grandparent that this is true, and your grandparent said to your parent that this was true, and your parent said this to you and said this is true, and if you learned that it wasn't true, that would probably be a little bit upsetting, but would you be open to accepting that something you had been told was true wasn't true?
Yeah, if it's false information, then I'd be like, okay, that didn't help me none. But then
Awesome.
For example, my grandparents would say like, oh, the Vikings were here before everybody else came from Europe, and I was like, but in school they would be like, oh, it was Christopher Columbus. I was like, no, it wasn't. It was the Vikings.
Yeah. So that one actually, as a specific example,
that one actually panned out. I was like, she wasn't full of what.
Yeah,
you can say shit.
Yeah, you can say shit on our if you would like to. You don't. It's not required.
I try to be respectful as all I can be most of the time.
We're pretty irreverent here. Yeah. Being irreverent comes naturally when you're an atheist. But what I will say is, yes, that actually panned out to be true. The Vikings sent explorers, and I think they made it to North America before 1492. But the point that I'm saying is, do you think that if you were using a method to learn, right? So, for example, if the method you were using to learn was, I've found 2 books on the shelf, I'll flip a coin, heads or tails, and whichever one is heads, if it comes up heads, I'll believe whatever that book is, right? That's actually a really bad method to learn because one of those 2 books could be Mein Kampf, which is bullshit. Spoiler alert, it's bullshit. But if there was a person who was using that as a method to learn, do you think that they would want to find a better way to learn what's true and not true?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why you use more than one method.
Right. Like, so you find the most reliable way, 1 method, 2 methods, whatever, to determine what is true versus what is not true, right? So one of the things that I've heard you say in this call is that there's knowledge that's been passed down from generation to generation and that it's a part of your heritage, and that that seems to be one of the reasons that you believe some of the things that you believe. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Okay, but as far as the history of the world, there are lots of people who have believed things on that basis and been wrong. Right? So there's people who have had, knowledge, and I'm sort of using air quotes here, passed down from generation to generation, where that knowledge, in air quotes here, has been wrong, right? All of the examples I can think of are either racist or sexist and would be huge distractors, but people have been told things by their parents sincerely that are not accurate, right? And it's not necessarily that their parents are lying to them, it's that their parents are wrong. Like people can be wrong about things. So do you think that, well, people that I'm directly related to told me this is a good method for human beings to use to learn what is true?
Well, from what's been passed down from generation, yes, I believe they can use it.
Okay, so from generation to generation, for example, there are some people in countries that have been told, well, our, clan, our tribe, our extended family group, we are the best tribe. There's a divine being that only cares about us, and our destiny is to be, for example, the master race, right?
Oh.
Do you think that that is true?
No.
Okay.
But it was passed
Neither do
down.
I. But it was passed down from generation to generation.
It's like with my people, they came from the north, so they were came from the mountains. So,
Right, but
so
what I'm examining here is
totally
the method of what I'm examining here is
better than anybody.
Yeah, so what I'm examining here is the method of learning, right? And if the method of learning is whatever my parents tell me, that's true, and we have an example of parents telling children something that's not true, wouldn't that be an example of that method of learning failing to teach someone truth?
Yeah, if they're getting taught false information.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that it's
not true. Then that's not good to use.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that it's the only method you're using to come to the conclusions that you are coming to. But earlier in this call, you said, "Well, I believe this. It's part of my heritage." Presumably, that alone isn't a good reason to believe that it's true. Charles?
Yes, I'm sorry. I mean, but I'm able to use it, and it's helped me get through the years.
But that doesn't mean that it's a good reason to believe. You can find other ways to validate whether or not a thing is true, right? Your reasoning that you're giving is really bad reasoning. That doesn't mean that you're not on truth, but that's not the reason it's true, right?
Right.
So I can say, I've said before, if I had a made-up religion, and I went out and helped people, and those people accepted my made-up religion as true because I helped people, that would be very poor reasoning, right? Even if
go out there and try to be Jesus,
right? And I'm writing a book that says it. So, but I'm doing that because I'm trying to make a point, not because I actually believe it, but because the point is that you shouldn't be relying on that reasoning for that exact reason, right? I can say gravity exists because I will it to exist, right? Eric wills gravity to exist across the world, and that's why gravity exists. And I can say, see, I'm pointing to gravity, therefore Eric wills it, right? That doesn't actually make sense.
They have proven that a butterfly across the world can
no, it does. No, hold on.
Move its wings, and then on the other side, it can rain.
So
Charles,
chaos theory is not. That's not what that conclusion is,
and that has nothing to do with what I said.
Yeah.
Right. Again, that's another rabbit trail that I think that if we nail down the epistemology here, if we nail down your methodology for understanding what's true or not, you can individually on your own conclude that that's wildly inaccurate.
I know.
Right?
I heard that one the other day. I was like, well, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But things do have effects that we don't always understand.
Yeah. So the bit about a butterfly flapping its wings is an extract of part of an idea that's been simplified from a sort of broader field of almost philosophy. I suppose I'm very quickly reaching the end of my knowledge, but that falls into chaos theory as far as what the causal effects are that lead to, for example, a typhoon. What I will say is I kind of want to go back to this. We were talking about believing things because they were passed down from generation to generation. And I think we were sort of in agreement that false things can be passed down from generation to generation. And we got to a point where you'd said, yes, but it's useful to me. I think what you said was, it's helped get me through the years, or I've used it to help get you through the years.
Yeah, because I think, like like some of the other religions and faiths can be a little judgmental.
I think that's very true. But what I will say is,
because I'm not just a pagan and a witch. I was actually born with a disability and a deformity. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
I was told early on when I went to Christianity church that people like me don't go to heaven, and that really messed me up. And
that's heinous,
and so I went through meditations and all kinds of stuff to try to grow and improve that people that might be a little different than other people can, grow and achieve, greatness and from this world to the next.
So I think it's great that you found a way to get forward after being told something unbelievably inhumane.
I'm sorry.
Do you mind if... No. I'm sorry that you were told that. I don't blame you for being told something that's terrible. As a quick aside, do you mind me asking what version of Christianity the people were using to say that? Really? Okay. Wow, I've got more to learn about Pentecostalism.
So, Charles, that is really, really, really heinous.
Yeah.
And I think that, unfortunately, those people are also using...
That's why, after that, you would have to hear my near-death experience, and then when I came back, and that's a whole other story.
But Charles, these people are also using some really, really flawed tools to understand the world around them. And
yes.
You have been subject to what happens when people use terrible reasoning to inform themselves about the world. Do you agree, then, that terrible reasoning can be very, very detrimental?
Of course. I mean, if it's going to harm somebody,
okay.
if it's knowledgeable
so let me give you an example, Charles.
Let me
give you an example.
Like
I've known people who have been told this spell, right, or this homeopathic remedy, or this chakra treatment, this rebalancing stuff, all of these different, quote unquote alternative methods, right, will heal you. And then I've seen those people get worse, and I have known people who have died because of that. Do you think that someone dying because they're being lied to is detrimental?
Yeah, if it's not going to help them, then,
right?
Yeah,
so
that's no good. But
yeah,
I mean,
so then it's worth
some, herbal remedies that they can use.
No, hold on, Charles.
Them better.
Charles,
of course,
Charles.
I'd be like, heal the cancer.
Charles.
Yes.
I want to see cancer eradicated, and I want to follow the evidence and investigate and empower those people who are much smarter than me to be able to find or create a cure for cancer, right? If somebody says, I'm going to throw together some herbs and cure cancer, and that person has not gone to the press to make sure that everyone in the world has this cure tomorrow, then that person is either completely immoral or doesn't actually have that cure.
Well, plus the FDA doesn't approve everything that actually works most of the time, and it's just like...
So you need to investigate. You need to investigate those claims. What I'm trying to what I'm trying to get you to, though, Charles, is that it is fucking detrimental, right? And again, I'm not cussing at you. I'm cussing at a very, very painful tool that people try and use that does not work and kills people. This tool that you're describing right now kills people, right? And I'm not trying to use this as an argument, from Consequent, right? And you can look that up, and I understand that it can sound that way, but it is so bad that it's not just something that goes, oh yeah, well, it doesn't matter, right? It matters so much to me that I'm talking to you right now, telling you that is a really bad idea. People die because of it, and so I need you, dude, to really, really understand that you need to investigate medical claims before you say that it's true. And what you're doing right now, even as an aside, even in the middle of this conversation, you're throwing in medical claims that are untested and could kill people. You don't want to be that person. You've understood, you've felt what it's like when somebody uses a bad way of thinking to inform their world. They hurt people, and I don't want you to hurt people. Do you understand why that's so important to me, Charles?
Yeah, of course. But I don't go around hurting people.
If you're using that as ideas, you are, Charles. You are hurting people because you're propping up a system that a lot of con artists use. They rely on people like you to validate their claims.
So what I will say is it's also not just con artists. So, Charles, ideas are very powerful because they are what motivate human beings, and beliefs motivate human beings, right? If a person believed, oh, this person has lung cancer, if I hit them in the head with a sledgehammer, that will cure them, I think you and I could agree that that would be a very, very bad idea. The unofficial position of the ACA, because I'm not allowed to declare those without the board, is in opposition to hitting people with sledgehammers. But you could agree that that's an idea and it would be dangerous. And if there was a person going around telling people, no, it's been proved by science, without the backing research, evidence, or testing, because we don't need to test that because we know how blunt force trauma works, presumably a person going around saying that would be something that you would be opposed to generally.
Maybe.
I mean, it's sort of it's a gimme question. Do you think that people should get hit in the head with sledgehammers?
No.
All right. Do you think that someone should say that getting hit in the head with a sledgehammer is a good idea?
No.
Okay. Then neither do I.
But why do you think magic can cure cancer? Because that can be just as detrimental.
Right. So.
Because the magic is actually knowledge, because knowledge comes from wisdom, from learning, and then you can actually, if you came up with
magic
with things that work, that can cure cancer and can cure that, then use it.
Okay, hold on.
Yes. So if the thing that
you're almost right.
So what is the method that you use to come up with that cure that you would want to use? How do you figure out whether that works?
Well, I usually test it.
All right. So testing,
like the last guy
testing
you had
potential.
You tested one spell one time. Well, actually, what I do is I actually test it over and over again to make sure it works.
That's cool. So how familiar are you with the scientific process as far as testing claims and proposed cures for illnesses? Because you're very close to describing that method. So in part, it's form a hypothesis, come up with a methodology, the hypothesis being the cure cancer spell that, it's a hypothetical. I don't need to come up with the details right now because it's just an example about methodology. So-and-so comes up with a cure cancer spell. They test it on 5 people, and those 5 people's cancer goes into remission, right? So the way that we further test that is we see if it can be replicated again in some other way, right? So you get shamans the world over to try to perform this same spell or this same method or this same pharmaceutical using this same treatment in very strictly controlled conditions, right? Because one of the things that we know about cancer is sometimes it goes into remission without intervention, right? That's not very common. We don't rely on that as a method of treatment, but what we have to do if we're trying to figure out, this is what we're going to do in response to cancer, is we want to make sure that cancer treatment is reliable as we can make it, that it works or that it helps in 80% of cases or 90% of cases, or that it does something that's beneficial, right? And so the method that's been used that has been tested in this way, independent verification and replication, has been demonstrated to test and to find effective cures and treatments for illnesses. Right? So would you say that method, given at least for the sake of conversation, that the things I've said are true, would you say that method is an effective method to find medical interventions?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
So if, for example, something like homeopathy has been tested repeatedly, and those tests have demonstrated that given people that are treated with homeopathic remedies and people that are not treated with homeopathic remedies have statistically uniform or the same results. Would you say that that would demonstrate that homeopathy is not an effective intervention?
Not sure. How many times did they test it?
So
A lot for years. So, for example,
Then if it didn't work, then it didn't work.
right.
like-
So if the kinds of methods that you're proposing, right, if the mechanisms, for example, for chewing, for the life of me, I cannot remember the tree bark, in order to treat a headache,
Willow.
were understood. Is it willow bark?
Yeah, the tree bark that had Novocaine in it.
no.
I'm thinking of a different tree bark. So it's good that you say Novocaine. So through the process of testing, it's been determined by, human beings over the years, many of them, all of their names I don't know, but there's a lot of them, that Novocaine is the active ingredient that works. And that has been distilled and purified and put in bottles for dentists the world over to hopefully not abuse, but definitely use for their patients. Would you say that that is an effective method to have medical interventions?
Yes, it had a origin, and it evolved to where it's helping people. That's
And so
awesome.
the process of that evolution has been helped along by scientific investigation. Now, if you look at the history of science, basically, if you go just 300 years ago, that wasn't a process that was applied, basically at all. That level of rigorous scientific investigation wasn't really applied in any sort of meaningful way, at least not that I'm aware of. So given that there were people saying, I know definitively that this is true, I know definitively that leeches will help cure your illness, would you say that, well, before they've applied this method, in order to determine that this is reliable, that we would want to question and test that medical intervention before we started prescribing it?
Yes.
All right. So that knowledge of leeches was handed down from generation to generation to generation by people who had access to leeches. So I would say that rigorous scientific investigation, given that it's a method that's demonstrated to be useful, would be where I would go to find, for example, effective medical interventions or knowledge about physics and gravity or, the basic sciences and, the fundamental aspects of how the world works, rather than sort of legends and pieces of wisdom that have been passed down again and again, right? Because what happened with those is people passed down legends and things, and some of them were, hey, if you chew this tree bark, it will help your toothache. And what human beings did is they applied rigorous scientific investigation. They discovered Novocaine, they discovered ways of using it, and now we use Novocaine rather than tree bark because it's a more efficient way of getting to it. But some of those legends, if you say a prayer over someone, or you wave something, you wave burning, whatever in front of them. I don't know them because we don't do them, because we applied rigorous scientific
you're
testing.
talking about sage, like burning sage and stuff like that?
So I don't actually know whether sage has been used as a medical intervention, but some of those legends that have been passed down from generation.
More calming.
Yeah, so some of those legends that have been passed down from generation to generation have been rigorously scientifically tested, have been demonstrated not to have reliable effects, and have been abandoned as medical practice. So if you're trying to figure out what works to affect the world, either as far as medical intervention or physical intervention, right? Like if you wanted to destroy a building because you wanted to build a new one that was better able to withstand earthquakes, would you use methodology that had been rigorously scientifically tested and designed, or sort of folk legends?
Probably stronger beams.
Well, yes, but
What does that have to do with what Jamie said?
Yeah, that's not the question
Yeah.
I asked. Was, would you rely on rigorous scientific testing and design or folk legends as the basis for your decision?
Well, in folk legend, they build pyramids. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm done with
They
this.
build pyramids.
done with
in
this.
So actually,
legends, and
the
I'm like,
pyramids were
oh my God,
designed
they
with.
know how to do all that.
Yeah, so the pyramids were designed by studying architecture, right? And which blocks supported which blocks. So here's what I will say. We need to move on to other callers, Charles, but I am begging you, please. Hopefully your next Sunday is free.
Call back.
Call back in. And what I will say is, watch this video back. I know that I will. Do your best to spot things that I've said that didn't make sense, things that you've said that didn't make sense, or that where we didn't, we talked past each other, or we didn't make our point clearly. And we should revisit this because I think we're really onto something here.
Yeah. But we have gone through most of the show.
Yeah.
So we got to scoot.
Well, sorry about that, guys.
No.
It was a good call.
Wait, hey,
quick conversation.
we control how long the calls go, so it's on us. But it can I get you to promise to maybe call back?
Actually, we're going to put them on.
We're
going to put them on hold, Charles, and they'll talk to you on the other line, and we'll see if we can connect with you. Okay.
So is that
Okay.
Is that something you're interested in?
Or if you want to just hit me up on Facebook.
Nope. I want to have this on the air.
On your site.
You sir are
I think this is a really
treasure trove
helpful conversation
of bad epistemology. And while I care about you,
if you don't
I think
like
you're
the way I think sometimes, that's fine. I still like you guys.
and we still like you too, man.
So,
but we want to work with you on giving you the best toolbox possible. We want to help sharpen and give you exactly what you're going to need to be able to be successful in the future. And it's not just about religion; it's about everything that you use to inform your world.
How you approach the world. So like Eric said, we're going to put you back on hold. Right. Thanks for calling in, Charles.
Thank you.
It was a good conversation.
All right. So really quickly, I just had I just had something that I really wanted to share, and that is that I saw a couple times there was appeal to anecdotal evidence, and I just want to, in a nutshell, give why anecdotal evidence is a bad idea, and then we'll move on to the next call. So here's the deal, right? As Jamie was saying, when you're talking about cancer, right, there are people who will go into remission without any reason for having gone into remission. There was nothing medically given to them, no diagnosis. They just spontaneously went into remission, right? And so what you do is you test your hypothesis for what this cure might be against what happens naturally, because naturally so many people will die, so many people will go into remission. There's this likelihood of different circumstances. And so you test your cure against the control, which is nothing changing, right? And you very carefully watch that. And so here's where anecdotal evidence comes in. When somebody goes into remission and you keep that person, and the next person goes in and you keep them, and the next person goes and you keep them, you can get a collection of people who went into spontaneous remission and have convinced them that your cure actually worked, right? It's called counting the hits and ignoring the misses, right? You don't get a really nice letter from somebody who died that says, hey, everything worked out real well for me. Right? But you keep the letter from the person who got better. And so I've had notebooks, huge things, and they say, how can you ignore all this evidence? And I can ignore all this evidence because I have no idea how long it took you to pick that evidence out. And if you're cherry picking it, there's a good chance that you might be ignoring everyone else who it didn't work out for. And that's why you cannot accept anecdotal evidence as truth. You can use that to help inform a hypothesis that you can test in the future, but to say, hey, this worked for me, this anecdotal evidence, here's somebody that this worked for, you have no idea how long it took to get to that number, to collect those people. And so when you come across those things, when you come across those, here's the miracle story and it worked in my life. That's why it never works when someone calls in and says, I want to share my story. Because statistically, wild shit happens every day. There are billions of us in this world. And so 1 in a million chances are happening every day. And so you can collect those. And by saying, oh, this is incredibly unlikely, well, that's okay. That's understandable. But that doesn't mean that you should be coming to a conclusion that doesn't have good evidence. I'm ready to move to the next call. Thank you for letting me spout for a while.
Just real quick, if it really is 1 in a million chances, it happens 7,000 times a day.
Yeah.
What I will say is there's a slight difference in the phrasing that I would say, which is it's not so much ignoring the evidence of anecdotes. It's acknowledging, one, if you don't know the methodology, you can't rely on any data. But two, any data where you can't confirm the methodology. That's what makes data strong. And two, you're affording that data, I'll use the word generously here, exactly the weight that it has earned.
Yeah, I got into an argument on the first day of a 5-day cruise with an acupuncturist.
Ooh, wow.
So stuck on the boat.
Did they poke you in the eye with the needle at the end?
No, but he really thought that I was the absolute worst. And I just don't have an open mind. And it's like, dude, show me evidence, man. But what you're saying is that you can poke needles into people and cure diseases. Yeah. And that just has not been shown to be true. Yeah. So we're an hour into our hour-and-a-half show. And so I want to thank some patrons.
Yeah, patron thanking.
Our number one patron, Neil. I know we talked on the phone. You're like, hey, you don't have to, give me a shout or anything.
But we're going to.
We so appreciate you.
Thank you.
Neil has really kicked in and is fucking awesome. Our next patrons are Dale Smith. Nando Gonzalez.
You the best.
Alex Watts.
You the bomb.
And Philip May.
Those are radical.
Those are our top 5 patrons this week.
Fast.
And we thank you so much. If it's your donations that keep us going. This is a nonprofit. It is donated dollars that keep the lights on. And
we can't do any of this without donations. And what I will say is I literally ran out of impromptu thank yous because we're overwhelmed by your generosity.
We really are.
So overwhelm us more.
If you'd like to, please consider going to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. If you can't, that's totally cool too. We appreciate and we're happy that you're here. I get letters from people.
If you can't, you can always like and subscribe.
Yeah, smash that like button.
And comment.
We've got 800 people watching and 100 upvotes. Come on, let's get this out there. We'd really appreciate it.
1 in 8? How is Eric ever going to be persuaded to take his top off?
Anyway, let's move on.
All right.
You want to pick the next caller, Jamie? Go ahead.
Let's take Cory.
Cory in Indiana. Hey,
Hello.
Cory. Hey.
Hi. Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Great to talk to you. Going well. It's I'm from actually Bloomington, Indiana, probably the most atheist place in Indiana because of Indiana University.
So does that mean there's 2 atheists there?
I think it's up to 4 now, and we are starting a club.
Yeah.
Nice. Have you contacted the...
We're happy to advertise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I've been listening to your guys' show for a long time. I've wanted to call in, and, I don't want to waste too much of your time as I'm an atheist, but I wanted to, briefly just kind of share an experience I had. Whenever I was 16 years old, I was sentenced by a judge as a juvenile to illegally, which it ended up being illegally, sentenced to I don't know if I can say the organization, but to what is essentially a Christian cult camp in Arkansas. Very random. But I was sent there as a Christian, I believe, at the time in my life. And this place, I'll tell you what, they should really just be in the business of making people not believe, because I was really put in the position where I had to decide whether or not these fundamentalist Christians who went by the book more than everybody I was raised around are just wrong. And it kind of forced the hand. And a lot of the reason why I want to share it is because of the news recently with, all the political, divisive political things going on. A lot of times what gets mentioned is the conversion camps. And I realized after the fact, now I'm 30 now, but I realized years later, I was in a conversion camp. I met homosexuals there who were being told that some of them were possessed or, they were everything but, hey, you were just born gay. And it was really, really terrifying, to be honest.
Yeah, it's almost like there was information that people came up with that they pass on from generation to generation that hurts people and isn't remotely accurate as far as the world is concerned.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that I want people, I kind of wanted to get on here too to kind of represent for Indiana, and I want people to know, I know people in Indiana. I've met a lot of atheists. I'm one of the more outspoken. I do a lot of I have adopted your street epistemology. I do that a lot here in my town, and I don't record it. I don't think I'm ready to be any kind of representative for it, but I am practicing, and it's been a while now, and I want people to know in Indiana that, you know, you are totally not alone. I think
That's
a lot of
right.
people are scared to come out and just say, hey, I'm atheist. But if you do, I can attest, many people reach out to you and say, hey, me too.
So,
Dude, that's awesome that you're doing that, man. It's doing something like that. It doesn't mean that you have to have the money. It doesn't mean that you have to be busy every single day, but reaching out and saying you're not alone is so big.
Yeah.
Cory, thank you so much.
yeah, I think it's one of the main benefits of the show, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
True.
I'm going to get on my high horse just a little bit here. I'll be minimally preachy, but being sentenced to mandatory Jesus stuff is not an isolated incident. It happens all the time in the United States. Google it. It's bad. Because, there's not enough bad news. So that's obviously, Cory, you know what I'm talking about. But because it happened to you, and we're sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
But also, congratulations on deconversion.
I'm actually really glad it did, though, to be honest. Yeah. I remember when it was happening, I thought, I would cry like every night. I was like confused. I'd never been to the South. I didn't realize that the South was so fucked. Honestly, I got beat up. One time I heard these guys talking about how the South should have won the war or something along those lines. And I was joking because I didn't realize there was still any tension with this, being that we're all Americans now. We're not called the Confederate States of America. But I went up and I said, hey, guys, let's not forget who won the war. And I laughed, and they all jumped me. They just all started to get it. They just jumped me. And I realized after that this wasn't necessarily... We haven't moved on from this very much, and I had no idea.
It's almost like there was a level of tribal, clan, our group, their group stuff that was passed on from generation to generation that was harmful and not related to reality and
taught.
Causes strife.
Yeah.
It's almost like if everyone thought of themselves as human first, that would be good.
Yeah. And you guys were also talking about the holidays and Christmas in the beginning of the show. And I know one of your patrons said they wanted to that topic was important. They wanted to talk about it. And I do have something that I really wanted both of your opinion on. I know that there's no answer for this, and I've heard so many callers, so I'll make it brief. But I went to Thanksgiving with my family, and I actually went to my wife's, and I didn't go to my mom's this year. You know the drill. Sometimes you just do one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, we did my wife's, and her grandmother is classic situation. She's really religious, and she heard I'm atheist. I don't think I've ever directly told her, but I know that they've talked about it. And she calls my wife. I'd say probably about once a month, and sometimes she's crying. She's afraid that me and my kids are going to burn forever. And she gave me a book. Now, I've talked to her a lot about just in general how I like to read, and I'm always reading. I just really love to read. And so she gave me a book, and I knew it was coming eventually. And she gave me the I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be Atheist book.
Yep.
And I'm going to just tell you guys my the way that I'm going to handle this situation, and I would just like your opinion on whether or not you think maybe this is good.
Sure.
So Grandma gives me this book, and this is immediately an unfair situation because first off, she hasn't read the book, and I feel like that's kind of a disservice to this whole thing of, hey, here, look at this point of view. I'm not sure of it, but I know that this one is a good one.
Yep.
Like, I don't understand. So she hasn't cracked that book open, you can tell, and I had my wife ask her just in case. She said she hasn't read it. So I will, though, because I've already... to be honest, I've already watched a lot of videos about it. It's a famous book. Lots of atheists that I follow have read it, and I feel like I have to read it, right? So I'm going to.
They've converted.
What makes this... Yeah. But what makes this really unfair is she didn't read the book, and I will, and then once I'm done, I cannot go back to her. My wife has kind of made it point, and I don't think she's wrong, that it's imperative that I don't share with her my views of the book afterwards. And I was going to give her a book too, that she's a big Bible thumper, so I wanted to give her a book that really, she doesn't know the truth about the Bible, honestly. She thinks Matthew, Mark, and Luke and John, they wrote those books. She's got a very, very
I was going to say
view of it.
I was going to say, there's a religious book that a religious person hasn't read, but they want you to read. I was going to like, welcome to being an atheist that talks about these things, because that applies to the Bible, Lee Strobel's book, name a book.
I actually read those.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you did. That's the point.
Read
Is
that one.
we end up reading them, and they.
Yeah. So, Cory?
Yeah.
What I would do in the situation probably won't work for you then. Because what I would do in the situation is say, you gave me this book. Thank you. Let's read it together. And as you go through it together, what you're saying is, I care about what you feel. I care about what you're saying. I'm validating you here. And I want to do this together with you. And that way, a piece at a time, you can go through it together with them. And there are some parts that you might agree with. So there are a lot of books that have real basic human truths in them that are just fine. But then when it comes to those things, being to organically be able to say, well, this actually feels disingenuous to me. Or, this really kind of strawmans my position. Or this really doesn't fit with the way that I understand faith to be.
Right, and that's exactly true. I mean, what you're saying are examples, but it's true immediately with the title.
Yeah, but
the title immediately shows that they don't know what the atheist position is.
But if you read it together, you might be able to at least a little bit go, okay, every time you give me a book, I'm reading it with you, so be prepared. Right? And then the next thing is, don't say, I'm going to read a chapter, you read the chapter, and then we get together and talk about it. Actually read it with her. That really could diffuse it. And this is just my personal, what I would do. It could be a really bad idea in your situation. I don't know your family. I don't know your wife. I don't know your mother-in-law. So I'm not going to say that is the right way to go in every situation, but that's what I would do.
Well, I appreciate it. I think that's definitely something I hadn't even thought of. And I think that anyone coming at this genuinely, like, supposedly she is, would be open to that. And if she's going to really want me to receive this, then I think that she should be, at the very least, enthusiastic in walking through that with me. And I think that's something I'll definitely probably do. I hope that the other part of the issue or question, I guess, is that she's 75, and I've gotten, I don't know, I hope I don't want to sound braggy here, but I've gotten good at, and this is entirely, I think, thanks to street epistemology. I'm good at getting people to the point where they will state their beliefs and then just letting them sit with that kind of technique, and realizing that a logical person, most logical people, they don't really like what they believe once they just kind of blueprint everything, and they're like, wait, what do I believe? And I've gotten my mom in the past year. I've had these conversations with my mom, and she stopped going to church. My mom's been really receptive because she didn't raise me that I had to believe. She believed. She raised me to question it, and I'm like incredibly lucky that I had a mom like that. And so I've gotten her to kind of walk away from that community, but she has a strong other community of a diverse group of friends. We live in a really liberal. Indiana is a garbage state, but I'll tell you, Bloomington, where Indiana University is a diverse, little, beautiful town full of culture and great things. So
I'm really happy to hear it, man.
Grandma won't be, though. I almost don't want to do this because Grandma's life is this religion. I don't think she has anything else.
I'm in a similar situation with a close friend of mine. Actually, I'm in that exact situation with a few friends of mine, and it's a decision-making process that is not easy, and I still struggle with it. So one of the things that I would say that's a book that's very helpful that I can recommend is the book a manual for creating atheists. People will hear my suggestion of that and say, oh no, just go watch a bunch of street epistemology videos, which is also a helpful thing, but actually reading the text of that book is a good way to go as well, because the first part of it is just addressing how this sort of thing happens, how people fall into these things, why people start using faith as an epistemology, particularly if they haven't previously. What I will say, Cory, is this sounds like, all right, we know what your current position is. This is a call I want to, get back to, later, whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I can always, I will definitely call back to you and give you guys an update on her response. I would definitely like to share that with you guys. I think this will be interesting.
I'd definitely love to see how it works out, and we're hoping everything works out well for you. If I gave you advice that ruins your life, I'm so sorry in advance. But
I can forgive you guys. Only you guys that talk to you, and I'll
you.
Yeah, we love
All
you
right.
too, man.
Well,
All right.
Cory, we've got a bunch of calls, and we're coming up on the end of the show. So call back. We hope that advice helps, and thank you for your call this week.
Absolutely. Take care, bud.
Absolutely.
All right.
Every time.
That's okay.
They're always saying something back.
Sometimes the endings can last another 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and that's not good.
it's different. It's a radio show.
Yes, we are munching on communion wafers.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of flavor, but when I dip them in my energy drink, they're sacrilegious, and I love it.
All right, let's take.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy. I'm going to own that. Anyway,
let's take Jay, because it plays into some of the other things we've talked about this week. Jay in Kentucky, you're on with Jamie and Eric. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Hello.
You ready to talk heathen to us?
Well, I know the show's about to end pretty soon, right? So how much time are we talking?
Well,
what we're going to do
have
is
infinite patience.
Yeah, we're going to talk to you until as long as we can.
Until they call the police to drag us out of here.
And we're going to talk to all the other people on the line. If we have to move into Patreon content after the show, we will. But we want to have these conversations as much as possible.
And also, what I will say is, if we can only have the first part of the conversation now, and we want to continue it, that means next week.
We have a launching off point.
Yeah, we have a launching off point. Yeah. So what did you want to talk about today?
Well, actually, I wanted to mention briefly before I ask Mike, or talk about what I wanted to talk about. Our Norwegian friend that called earlier, his Christmas greeting that we translate Merry Christmas, it's actually Good Yule, as in Yuletide.
Okay.
And that's where that comes from. So
nice.
Yeah. Just incidentally, I thought that was interesting.
That's cool.
So
that's just like when Gesundheit, and different things, instead of saying bless you, they don't mean bless you. They mean good health.
Yeah.
So. And I believe Yule was originally like the winter solstice festival.
Yep.
In Northern Europe. So
one of those pagan co-ops.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
So is that what you wanted to touch on? Because the note here is okay.
I just thought that was interesting when I heard what he said. I don't know Norwegian, but I could hear the roots of the words. So anyway, I wanted to talk about how scientific discoveries have kind of altered religious thinking over time, going all the way back to ancient times.
Can you give us an example real quick?
Sure. So, like, if you go back to ancient Samaria and ancient Egypt and ancient China, where polytheism is common, when people are studying the stars, astrodynamics, how things move in the heavens, there's this, really this sense of it's other, it's chaotic, it's we see that it moves, we don't really know how, and the North Star stays put and the Southern Cross stays put, and they're useful for navigation, but we really don't get it. It's alien and strange, just like the gods are alien and strange and do chaotic things, and it's confusing.
Okay.
And, because life is chaotic and confusing, and that's just the way it is. And then, you get Aristotle, and he says, wait a minute, guys, I see a lot of order going on. And he posits, like the celestial spheres, these circles that represent
Oh yeah, the layers.
the motion of the planets, the motion of the stars, the motion of the moon, as spherical, and it's this like perfect, divine, supernatural thing.
Yeah.
But it moves from this chaotic explanation of things to a orderly one. It all stems from a prime mover.
I'm interested. I'm interested in how you're going to tie this back, because we're getting a history lesson. I just kind of want to know how you tie it.
Right.
Which is interesting. But how has the scientific discovery influenced the religious thought? Using that as an example.
Okay, so you can see kind of a connection between the ancient view and polytheism, and then an Aristotelian view connects with something like creationism. A kind of a young Earth. There's one source of all of creation, but it's all supernatural. There's these acts that order things in a very supernaturalistic way.
The taxonomy of animals being related to, like Thomas Aquinas, his levels of close to God.
Right, exactly. Okay. It's an ordering, but it's a supernatural ordering.
Right.
And and that's a shift from the polytheism that you see elsewhere. Okay. To a more kind of monotheistic view.
Yeah, in certain parts of the world.
Not necessarily a Christian, but monotheistic. That there's a single prime mover that's ordering things in an organized way.
Monotheism.
Okay, so
then then with like Copernicus, it's like wait a minute, the data is not fitting.
Hey Jay,
a Earth-centric view.
Okay,
Jay,
and so
let's cut to the chase. So what?
Okay. Well, I think...
I say that lovingly. We just don't have a lot of time, and I want to try to dive into the meat while we can.
I understand. That's partly why I asked about time.
No worries.
We can do the highlights this week, and then we can return for the more detailed...
Okay. Yeah, I think that
juicy, fatty
we can agree that the more we know about the world around us and the more that we explore it, the more that it influences us, and that's in every way, not just religion, but definitely religion.
So for example, the existence of a firmament and rain being gates opening in it is not something that's preached by any church in the Catholic Church. It was at one point. And then the way that rain works was discovered, and the Catholic Church has once again accepted that evolution is an explanation for...
So we agree with you with these things.
Do you have a point beyond that story?
Yes. So let me just do two more very quick examples, because I think they illustrate what I'm getting at.
All right.
Let's try and nutshell them. Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, can you give us like a headline of what the conclusion is before we get to those examples?
Actually, that would be good.
Well, I think that faith and rationality are compatible.
Okay. What is your definition of faith?
Belief in God.
Okay.
And,
so let's
basic theism.
Belief in God could be rational.
Right.
Let me give you
narrow it down to
let me give you my definition. Right. Faith is belief without evidence.
Yeah.
Can we try using that definition?
No.
Why?
I don't agree with that.
Why?
Because I think people have experiences that, at least from their own point of view, are evidence. And to say that it's without evidence is like saying, let's run with that.
Let's add the word reliable.
Faith
to
without
that
evidence.
Yeah.
You can have bad evidence.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Newtonian physics would say, here's how the planets move, and by the way, gravity also affects stuff on Earth, and it's the same laws, right? That's a naturalistic explanation.
Sure.
So then what about general relativity?
What about it?
That's also a naturalistic explanation.
It is a naturalistic explanation.
Yeah.
So it is rational. There is evidence for it.
Empirical.
And so it does not need faith.
I will say empirical as well.
There's no faith in there yet. So where does faith come in?
We should try not to jump on him as much. But we're eager to get to this, and we've heard things like
how do we know that general relativity is true?
We test it.
Yes, but how do we? I can't go and test it with the resources and time that I have.
Okay, then
so there's a book I can recommend that explains the methods that were used to determine it, and why those methods are considered reliable. Actually, A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking does a really good job of that.
I've read that.
Ah, okay, cool. But I mean, if you're saying you can't look at the data yourself, then yes, that's true.
Yeah, that's why.
I can.
That's
totally,
why it's totally. That's why it's totally okay to assign a provisional confidence level. Thank you, Jamie. You fucking got it exactly.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. So I'll say, you know what? I'll accept this based on this, but I'm absolutely open to being wrong and correcting that if needed.
Absolutely. But even if I accept that data, I'm accepting somebody else's information, that they took measurements.
Okay.
Their material was published and disseminated.
Right.
So I can't prove it for myself.
Right. So
I have to take somebody else's evidence, as a trust exercise.
No.
Yes.
I have to say,
so Jay,
I agree with what this says. I agree with the methodology, but I didn't actually see it. I wasn't actually there.
You do have to say that, given you didn't actually see it, you weren't actually there. So two things. One, if you were there and you did see it, that would not be stronger evidence than the methodology that's generally applied, because an individual human being with their individual observations isn't a reliable basis for conclusions. Rigorous scientific investigation has been demonstrated to be more reliable. But also, yes, there's a certain degree to which, for example, I cannot personally fly in the International Space Station and see that the Earth is an oblate spheroid, right? But using conclusions and without forgive me for being insulting to some people, absurd level of doubt and conspiracy-minded thinking, if you want to live life coming to conclusions, you have to start thinking about what type of evidence is reliable and examining how it is that human beings have learned things over the years. And unless you're going to go to the unjustified conclusion that, there's a species of lizard people that is deliberately manipulating everything around me to fool me, or hard solipsism, which is I'm just a brain in a vat and the entire world is programmed to fool me, you have to work with what you have. And part of that is human beings working together to determine what is reliable.
Sure.
So if a more reliable method presented itself, I would adopt that, right? But until it does, I have to use this method. So there is a really, really, really difficult and tricky component that I actually think at the moment most people are not good at, right? So the people that read a book that warns them and does a little bit of fear-mongering about vaccinating their children are presenting something like science, which we call pseudoscience. So it dresses up in such a way to fool people into thinking that it's reliable. And many times it's done by people that think they're using a reliable method, right? So the problems of being a person in society and trying to become what is often referred to as scientifically literate, and being able to, as an adult that doesn't have, a teacher explaining the history of the thought about, chemical structures to you, right? Without a guide, it's very, very difficult to find your way towards reliable information about the world around you. I'll give you that. But the conclusion from that of, it's very difficult and there's only so certain that I, as a member of the public and certified non-scientific researcher, can come to, does not lead me to, well, then I can't believe it. It leads me to, well...
And I'm not saying that.
I don't think you're saying that, but I'm just sort of saying broadly, because there is also, an audience of however many people. So sorry for sort of jumping the gun in a direction that actually I don't think you were going. But
that's okay. It was good information. Yeah. And so let's move on.
Where were you going with that, Jay?
Just that, if there are people who have religious experiences and they really believe that they have encountered the divine,
right?
Then sure, there can be false positives. There are cases where we can say, no, you're actually mentally ill.
Right.
No, you have something, you got hit on the head, whatever. And that explains the things that you're, experiencing.
Okay.
But in the cases where we don't have that kind of information, is it intellectually honest to just dismiss it as untrue?
Yes.
No.
When we don't have information to verify or falsify.
Okay.
It's intellectually honest to not come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of want to walk through this a little bit with you, right? So we are talking about whether or not we can determine whether if something is true, right? And whether or not faith,
right,
or with this definition, believing without evidence, is a good way to get there, right? So were you listening when I talked about anecdotal evidence, right?
Yes.
Grabbing the hits and ignoring the misses.
And I don't think anecdotal evidence is a good way to draw conclusions.
Awesome. So
I think that when people have an experience of the divine, that other people shouldn't immediately say, well, you've got to be crazy.
No. Oh, gosh,
There's no way it can be true.
Jay, so here's a really, really terrible fact about the culture that we're in, right? Mental health is something that we all need to care about, because being able to function as a human being, it's difficult. We all have baggage, and we all have different processes in different brains that may or may not, be able to produce, chemicals that would lead to depression. Or, we're still learning. It's an open field, right? But we all deal with mental health. Right. And there are things that are observable. Right. There have been recorded studies where people have gone in and experienced, something really, really radical, like, people, missionaries who come back from Africa, and they said, we were in this tribe and we saw, this exorcism, and the person was flying around and everybody saw it. Right. But then they go back to the recording that they had, and none of that really happened. But they had convinced themselves after the fact. There's this groupthink that happens, right? We are really, really bad when it comes to memory and the way that we recall those things. And so what you need to do is you need to, if you're wondering whether or not this conclusion is justified, you need to be able to determine what the most likely response is. I'm not saying that somebody is damaged, right? I have false memories. Jamie has had false memories. We've all had false memories.
Most of them are.
And so if somebody says, I had this experience, well, hold on. If someone says, I had this experience, what I should do is I should test it, right? And here's the difference that I'm trying to point out, Jay. The difference is, if you wanted to, if you had the opportunity, you could go to a university and get a degree and learn that science. Right? Would you agree with me that going in, you actually could do that? You are not blocked from that, unless it's, financial or something like that. But you can go in and learn these things.
Knowledge.
Yeah. If you want to go in and investigate supernatural claims, people have done that. And it doesn't pan out the same way. It actually doesn't pan out to the same level that we expect in evidence for anything else, right? You were listening, I think you were on the line when we were talking to this guy who was saying that it's all just, it's all possible. But really, it's not all possible. We have to do the best we can to investigate these things. And they're not equal. Jay, they're not equivalent.
No, they're not.
Okay.
And I'm not saying they are.
Well, at the beginning you did. You did make the false equivalency, and so I wanted to walk you through that because that was the most important thing to me.
Can you say what you believe I said? Maybe I misspoke, or maybe...
Oh, maybe I'm misremembering.
I want to be clear.
Or I could be misremembering.
Yeah.
Right? So when we started this conversation, we were talking about faith and belief, right? And whether or not faith is a good reason to believe. Or, accepting something without evidence is going to get you to truth, right? And you and Jamie...
that was your definition.
Right. And when you had responded, maybe this was Jamie, I got the well, even in science, we're taking this person's word for it.
Word, yeah.
And so if we're believing... Do you get why I'm responding to that way?
Right. But I guess I see if we're committed to, rational investigation and using rational methods.
Yeah.
Then if somebody makes a claim, and they feel very strongly about it, I don't think it is right to simply dismiss it as a foregone conclusion.
Oh, never.
That their claim is incorrect.
That's why when we listen to calls, we ask them and we follow them where they're at. You're talking to two people who want to know the truth about the world. We're not sitting here waiting to smash people down. We have come to a place where we feel like, being able to communicate in this way is helpful. And so we're doing that, but we're not closed off to things. We just want to have the best toolbox possible, right? And so if you're talking about somebody believing something emphatically, we're not going to sit there and deny, no, you don't believe it emphatically. Because that doesn't matter whether or not it's true. What matters is whether or not it's true. And so we investigate it the best way that we can, right? And so in the broader scope, Jay, most things you're not going to know, right? I have a cell phone, and I have no fucking clue how that works. I mean, I have a basic idea, but
computer.
Really, the way a lot of the world works, I don't know. But I do understand that these are things that you can know through investigation, right? And
so then how do you validate assumptions?
Sure. So what you do...
Your logic, will lead you from your assumptions.
Well...
But I don't know that it will
that's why you
do
need
anything other than showing if you have inconsistent assumptions.
That's why you need the best toolbox possible. Because as Jamie had pointed out before, the best thing we can do is provisionally give a confidence value to things. We're never going to know whether or not a thing is absolutely capital T true. It's just not a thing that we are capable of. We can go down that philosophical trail, but the fact is, because of that, we need to operate with the best confidence we have in things. And I mean, that's just the way of it. I fall asleep every night assuming that the sun's going to rise in the morning. I don't have any guarantee, but I do have a lot of evidence. I have a lot of evidence based on, testing it, right? I can go to everybody that I meet in the day and say, hey, did the sun rise this morning? Right? And we all experienced that sunrise, right? If somebody says, hey, if you light a candle and say Bloody Mary 12 or 13 times or whatever into a mirror, right? Either Bloody Mary is going to come through that mirror or not, right? We can test it. And if somebody says, oh my gosh, I saw Bloody Mary, right? Is it more likely that they saw Bloody Mary, or is it more likely that something else happened? Even if they're really, really convinced, Jay, that doesn't mean that it's more true. But it
also doesn't mean that it's false.
Yes. So, here, if you're right.
No, Jamie, go ahead.
So what I will say is actually Bloody Mary is a really good example to contrast. So as far as a level of confidence that the Earth is going to rise tomorrow, the best evidence for that is an understanding of astronomy, right? It's a thing that we experience every day, and through observation, hundreds of years, there always being a sky for humans to look at. If you get that metaphorical with your language, there's an understanding of the movement of the planets around the star Sol, which is the star at the center of our solar system. Which is where the name actually comes from. But if you're comparing types of claims, right? So a person that says, hey, if you mix, baking powder with vinegar, you can make a volcano, right? If you'd never seen that, that would be weird. But interesting and unexpected chemical reactions happen based on the chemical structures of things. If a person said, hey, if you mix vinegar with baking powder, a magical wizard will appear, and you wanted to investigate this, the basis for that understanding, while, I heard a bunch of stories about it, is an interesting and very common and easily accessible. You can get lots of those stories. Everyone that's ever gone into that house heard ghosts, right? But the basis by which we come to confident conclusions about the way the world works is through investigation, right? So you can ask everyone, did the sun rise today? And be sort of reasonably confident, yes, we understand that things move in space, But if you want to be actually confident about when the sun is going to rise in the morning, the sun will rise at 6:52 whatever time today, it takes an understanding of astronomy. And when you apply that level of rigorous investigation to claims about magical wizards coming out of baking soda and vinegar, and claims about mystical experiences or spiritual experiences or mental experiences, you get interesting results. So, for example, at the point at which, in society, right, and I think this is the part that grates people the most, someone says, hey, the other day I was waking up or whatever, and I floated out of my body and I experienced astral projection, or I saw someone who was possessed by a demon, or I experienced God and I felt the Spirit of Jesus, fill me with brighter countenance. There's two sort of responses to that of, oh, wow, tell me more, and also, no, you're full of shit, you're probably crazy. And neither of these is really a scientific response. Right, in the same way that
they both are assuming the consequences.
Yeah, so reliable, very reliable scientific investigation, like the astronomy level, is not easy to come by, which makes it less attractive as a way of understanding the world. It's also not does not play into the tendencies of our minds as they have evolved over the tendency of our brains as they've evolved over millions of years. So it really does take a level of unbelievably disciplined, rigorous investigation that is helped along and facilitated by scientific skepticism. And so as far as not just examining, near-death experience claims about spiritual experiences, but understanding what a reliable way to come to reliable conclusions about things in the world, whether it's homeopathic medicine or, no, this used car really is great and it was only driven by a grandma to church on Sundays and never for anything else. It's great. Pay double price. Whatever. I would say investigate the methods of scientific skepticism, because you don't have to be in a university to do that. And in fact, as far as I'm aware, there isn't a school in the United States that teaches that very well.
Right. And I'm aware of many of those methods. And I do think that they debunk a great many claims.
They do. And even learning them absent a specific claim is good, because it can guide people in their day-to-day lives, right? Like, there's an example that we used. I'm talking a lot right now.
That's okay. I talked a lot.
No, if I can sum up, is it fair to say that you're arguing that it's good to use Occam's razor to, find the simplest rational explanation for something?
It's a good starting point, but you don't ever want to stop there, because Occam's razor can be wrong.
Yeah. So what?
Yes.
That's not what I was getting at, but that's another thing that I would be willing to talk about.
Yeah.
That wasn't actually the point of the words I just said.
But there's a ton of unpacking. Okay. I think we've been having a really, really packed conversation.
Yeah.
And I would love to actually go back over it, because I think that I may have talked past you in my response, and I want to make sure that we're meeting and talking about the right stuff. The same thing.
I'm perfectly comfortable with a scientific methodology for getting at truth. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that it precludes genuine experiences of God's action in the world.
Okay, so hold on. I love that. Let's investigate it together, Jay. Because if that is a true thing, I want to know it, right? I really honestly want to know. So how do you investigate it?
Are you asking me on the spot?
Well, I mean, like maybe some examples.
Or are you just saying, how does someone go about investigating?
How does someone go about investigating?
Because we can agree on a lot of tools. And I think that for the most part, based on this conversation, you would agree on all the tools that we'd give, right?
Yes.
But if you're using a different one, then I kind of want to investigate whether or not that's a good tool to use. And if we're using one that's really bad, I want to know, because I want to be the best I can at deciphering the world around me. Right? So what I would love for you to do is maybe in a week, right, over time, we can look back at this call, and then we can determine what tools are best to use to be able to determine whether or not the God that you think exists. and how we can explore it. Because I want to know as many true things as possible. Jamie wants to know as many true things as possible and as few false things. And I think you do too. But I think there might be a tool lying around that's lending to not true things. And I'd love to explore that because I want to invest in you too.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, it does.
Awesome, man.
So, as a starting point, the thing about tools is they rely on the assumptions behind their use.
Yes.
Right?
But
so how do you validate your assumptions?
You test them. So let's say I'm using a tool, right? And that tool is scientific skepticism, right? Let's say I want to use the tool of maybe the laws of logic. Let's go with the laws of logic, right? I think that can really cut down to the core of it, right? Sure. We use the laws of logic to be able to determine, a lot about the universe that we live in, right?
Yes. But logic is dependent on the assumptions you start with.
And what are those assumptions?
You can have flawlessly sound logic, and if your assumptions are flawed,
absolutely,
your conclusions are.
Absolutely, right? You need those premises to be true, right? And so the funny thing is, I know Jamie has said it, and I'm going to say it as well. We operate using the best tools possible, right? If you can give me a time, an example, or anything that can show that logic, the laws of logic, are not useful or not reliable at getting to truth, then I will throw it out.
Honestly, that would be terrifying.
It would be.
If I could do that.
But the point is, we're using the best that we have. And it's not always going to be, maybe in 1,000 years we'll find, better tools or better be able to shape the tools that we have, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, do you? I mean, yes.
No, and I guess I've met a lot of people who I feel like they do that because I feel like they start with the assumption, for example, that only naturalistic explanations are possible.
There are a lot of people that start with that assumption.
Yeah, if you define naturalism as everything that exists, then everything would, by that definition, be naturalistic. You know what I mean?
If you define it that way, but that might exclude something that doesn't fit our assumptions about what it means for something to be natural.
So then from there, you would need to provide a definition for that thing that is not natural so that we can explore it, just like everything else, right?
Well, it might be more helpful to first define what is natural.
Agreed.
If you just say natural is everything that exists and God exists, then God is natural.
There's an if in there that we don't.
Yeah, we're not going to follow. Yeah, we don't accept premise 2. We would think that premise 2 there would need to be validated.
We don't have to go there.
In this call,
it's just it seems like an incredibly overly broad definition to say natural is just. We're just going to say it's everything. Therefore it's not nothing.
So maybe we can shave that down into something that would work. And I agree that your tools should be usable. But we're over time,
I think for this week, we should probably wrap it up. The last thing that I would say is when a person comes to me with a claim about something supernatural, I use, in general, my sort of knowledge about a lot of the flaws in sort of natural reasoning, right? So there's a couple of words in here that I would use, that you're using that I wouldn't use. Rationalism, because I would use empiricism, which is actually a significant difference.
That's fair.
And you're also saying your assumptions rather than conclusions or premises, and there's sort of a difference there. But I will give you that on a day-to-day basis, most people have assumptions rather than conclusions they've examined. But what I use is...
Right. You're just wanting to use more technical language. That's fine.
Yeah. So, for not just for semantic difference, but because it plays in my point, which is that I'm very, very familiar with what I perceive as a tendency in human beings to trust their own mind and trust their own reasoning to an unreasonable degree. And so when a person says, I felt this thing, I experienced this thing, I saw this thing, it must be true. This morning, before I woke up, I experienced getting up, being alarmed that it was only 30 minutes to the show, and being more than 30 minutes away, swearing loudly and making my bed immediately before I woke up, and was alarmed at what time it was, and then checked my watch and realized, no, I'd woken up actually before my alarm. That's something that is very, very real in my mind. Every aspect of those two completely contradictory memories exists in my mind right now. And based on further experience, I'm confident in saying that one of them was a partial result of either a dream state or, whatever it is, beta state, the one where you're transitioning between being awake and asleep. So when people come to me and say, well, I had this experience, I was floating, and there's nothing outside of their personal experience as they can report it experienced by their mind, and they believe, oh, that is always a reliable source of information, that tells me something about how reliable many of the things that they will report on that basis are. So while I can't come to the conclusion, no, there's no supernatural, I can come to the conclusion that the evidence they're offering is insufficient.
Because it's completely personal and you can't observe it.
Because while I am not a super great skeptical thinker, they, on the face of it, know less about that than I do.
Right.
And are not critically examining their own experiences in a way that I would, right? In a way that I know is important if you're trying to get to truth. So I don't come with the assumption, oh, there's no ghosts. I come with the assumption that there are unexplained things and a lot of phenomena is psychological. And I don't mean crazy. I mean the way that people that are not crazy think their mind works is way above the way their mind actually works. Your mind is not reliable. Your memories are not reliable. Your reasoning is not reliable. Particularly not anywhere near where human beings associate it, where personal experience would place it. And that's a really difficult concept to get across to people. It's pretty much as difficult to get across as this God that you've prayed to your entire 50-year life. There's insufficient evidence to support it.
There's so much invested that people put in that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard to let go.
Yeah. And you can't not invest in your brain.
I mean, I talked to a guy who was Pentecostal, and I asked him, I said, so if God didn't exist, all the times you spoke in tongues was just you babbling to yourself. And I
think the evidence for glossolalia is a little bit different from that. I mean, you do kind of have a brain state change when you go into that. I think
I don't know whether it's a brain state change, but human beings do a lot of things in what people often say are hypnotic states.
But the reason that I'm bringing it up is because he had invested in it, and if he was wrong, it would lead to embarrassment.
Right.
Yeah. So that investment kept him from exploring it. But we are so over time.
Yeah.
We have to go.
Will you call back, Jay?
This was an awesome conversation.
Please stay in touch in whatever your preferred method is. You've got email, Facebook, Twitter, etc.
All of those things. Take care, man. We've got.
Yeah, we gotta sign out.
Can I ask one quick question?
Bring it.
Do I need to call early to get in early, or do you guys just pick?
If you call about 30 minutes before, or even just 20 minutes, you'll get in.
Yeah.
But we really got to go, Jay. Thank you for your call. You've been fantastic. We will continue this conversation. And with that, let's get some love rings.
Yes.
Boom. For those of you that don't believe, you have community here. For those of you who do believe,
we don't hate you.
Wrong.
We just think you're wrong.
You're just wrong.
Man, yeah, we had to wrap that up quick.
Yep.
Jeez,
I couldn't even think of a way to mess it up.
Live studio audience, thank you. Thank you, everyone on the other side of this wall. Thank you, volunteers.